All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Papillion-La Vista Community Schools Board of Education meeting for May 9th, 2022. Section 1, call to order. We'll start with item A, our Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Thank you all. Moving on to item B, roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Here.
Ms. Witt?
Present.
Mr. Mather? Here. Dr. Foya? Present.
I'll entertain a motion to excuse the absence of Mr. Bailey.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Fisher and a second by Mr. Madler. Roll call, please. Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Mather?
Yes.
Dr. Foya? Yes. Ms. Fisher? Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you. As noted at each meeting, we do have the Nebraska Open Meetings Law posted at the entrance of our boardroom. All right, that concludes Section 1, call to order. Moving on to Section 2, communications. Our favorite item of most evenings lately. Item A, our recognition section. Dr. Rickley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lotus, members of the board. Thank you for our community for being here. As always, whether you're here in person or watching on YouTube, we're thrilled to have you. We'll get to our student recognitions in just a little bit. But first and foremost, I just want to thank all of the moms that are around the boardroom table, all of the moms that are in attendance, and all the moms that may be watching at home, along with our grandmothers. Hopefully you had a wonderful day yesterday. Some of you, I'm guessing, were probably at Baxter along with the rest of us celebrating commencement. But thank you for all you do to support our families. On to the student recognition. So as the community and the board is aware, we try to spend a little bit of time every month, as Mr. Lotus indicated, talking about staff and students that have really exemplified themselves in some type of an outstanding way. We have one staff member we're recognizing and a whole slug of students. So the way this will work is we'll do each of the three categories. We have two student categories, one staff category, and we'll pause after each one. And then we would invite the students or the staff person in particular to come up, be recognized by your Board of Education, then we'll do a quick photo op and then move on to the next group. So the very first group that we are recognizing this evening is our student council representatives, who are all seated in the front row. We've had a dedicated group of monarchs and titans that have come in every single board meeting and provided an update on what's happening at our high schools. And I believe I can speak for the entire board and administration when we say your reports are invaluable. To hear directly from our students about what's happening in our buildings is really, really cool. So we're grateful for that. Sad to see you leave, but incredibly happy to see you graduate and move on, for those of you that are seniors, to bigger and better things. So from Papillion-La Vista High School, we have Macy Waldron and Elle Hahn, and from Papillion-La Vista South High School, we have Evie Del Campo and Hallie Settles. Please come on down and be recognized by your Board of Education. Congratulations again to our monarchs and titans, particularly the graduates. We wish you the very best of luck in your future endeavors. The next category is a staff category, and we've had a few of these recognitions over the years. The professional organization, Nebraska State Association of Secondary School Principals, NSASSP, gives out annual awards that are both regional and state in their scope. The NSASSP recognizes outstanding secondary school assistant principals who have succeeded in providing high-quality learning opportunities for students. The program honors school assistant superintendent principals who have demonstrated excellence. The award is peer-nominated for exemplary contribution as a leader. We are extremely proud to announce that Brent Gehring, assistant principal at Papillion La Vista South High School, was recognized as the Region 2 Assistant Principal of the Year. Brent, please come on down and be recognized by your Board of Education. Mr. Gehring has been making the rounds this afternoon. I saw him and his lovely wife, Catherine, at the DARE graduation at Walnut Creek just about an hour ago. So thank you for your service, Mr. Gehring. And lastly, we have a whole bunch of DECA students, all from Papillion La Vista South, that we are recognizing this evening. Was Coach Gillen here? Did I see her walk in? Perfect. Thank you, Allie. I thought I saw you walk in, but I didn't want to be presumptuous. We have a number of state champions. There's a couple that aren't here, but I still want to read their name into the record for their outstanding accomplishments. Again, keeping in mind all of these individuals are state champions. Kenton Dunfield, senior, who's not here, and Paul Vu, junior, they were state champions in Entrepreneurship Innovation Plan as a team award. Next category was Casey Kruger, a senior, Julietta Panko, a junior, for Integrated Marketing Campaign, also a team award. Taylor Mock, junior, Cam Ralston, I don't believe Cam is here, for Project Management Business Solutions. Next category was Rachel Boslaw, senior, Presley Mickles. I'm not sure if Presley's here. Their project had to do with Project Management Community Awareness. Next category was Trevin Kaverzagi and Gus Kriegler. Not sure if Trevin and Gus are here, but they're on Project Management Sales Project Award. Next category was Kenzie Fritz, senior, on Integrated Marketing Campaign. And finally, Nicoletta Scofus, senior, Project Management Community Giving. In addition, Nicoletta is an international competition finalist in the Project Management Community Giving. Being a finalist means she's placed in the top 19 out of 144 groups, so it's an incredible honor with that specific category. So for all of our state champions from Papillion La Vista South, please come on down and be recognized by your Board of Education. Parents, please come on down. Well done, Titans. We're incredibly proud of you. Again, to our seniors who walked yesterday, congratulations and good luck to our juniors. We look forward to seeing you continue to flourish in our schools and community. And with that, Mr. Lotus, I would conclude our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Rickley. As a former DECA person myself, I know how challenging of a year it typically is. And so congratulations to all of our honorees this evening. All right, that concludes item A under section 2 communications. We'll now move on to item B, our public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. And we'll let them exit for a second. All right, there we go. All right, public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. For the public comment period, it is limited to shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of the board votes to approve extending allocated time. Individual may not exceed 3 minutes. When I call you your name, please step up to the microphone, and I'll need your name and address for the record. All right, first up this evening for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, Ms. Lowen-Eby. And Ms. Barinko's timer, she'll have the timer again, 2 minutes, 15 seconds is the first beep, and then the final set of beeps at 3 minutes. Welcome.
Okay. Hello, I'm Lowen-Eby. I reside at 1401 Edgewater Circle, Papillion, Nebraska 68046. My comments are related to the Vote for PLCS post on 3/14/2020 and the elementary school enrollment after the board unanimously voted to give Dr. Rickley general authority for COVID-19. On the Facebook page Vote for PLCS on 3/14/2022, the anonymous admin posted the following. Lowen-Eby brings up open meeting law concerns. She also continues to try to hunt down financial errors made by the district. She has certainly changed her tone tonight from the previous 2 years now that she has announced herself as a candidate. Over the last 2 years, she has been furiously attacking the school district and board members. Tonight, she is likely trying to mend relationships. However, parents and current board members are unlikely to forget her previous actions and words. On Thursday, August 26, 2021, Dr. Rickley emailed the Board of Education with the planned announcement to require masks. He stated the following: please keep this information confidential until Friday evening. The next several weeks will be rough, but I am absolutely confident we are making the right decision for our students. This information can be found on papillionpatriots.org on the email Public Records Production, pages 4 and 5. I analyzed the district's enrollment for our 16 elementary schools from August 2021 to September 2021. After Dr. Rickley's mask mandates, our district lost 23 students. It is my thesis parents did not agree with the mask mandate and voted with their feet and unenrolled their children. I implore the Board of Education to consider taking action and find out why our district lost the 23 students from the time frame of August 2021 and September 2021. If anyone has any questions or would like to talk to me personally regarding my comments tonight, please email me at lowen.eb@gmail.com. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Next up this evening for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, Ms. Brittany Holtmeyer. Welcome.
Hi, Brittany Holtmeyer, 2007 Ridgewood Drive. 2019 to 2020, 68 staff. 2020 to 2021, 87 staff. 2021 to 2022, 85 staff with a month and a half to go. These numbers were calculated from July to June the following year. These past years, we have had 240 resignations within our district. This does not include the number of leave of absence. Just a few weeks ago, Grand Island coach Mr. Jensen was fired after posting what Grand Island Public Schools deemed as confidential information regarding student survey results about school culture and climate. He shared no personal information, but it did point to what appeared to be systematic issues within their district. This post included reports of a lack of communication between administrators and students, as well as rapid staff loss, with more than 100 teachers leaving the district this year alone. It was the last images that eventually led to Mr. Jansen's firing. Listening to his interview, and as he was speaking, all that kept going through my mind was, are we sure he's not talking about Papillion? Just like he stated, the school board doesn't talk about the problems within the staff. Every vote they had was 9-0. Every social media is like they have a PR team that puts fancy stuff together, and deep down everything is crumbling. This brings me back to our meetings. I have been to every board meeting the past year and a half. It's always a 6-0 vote. It's a praise and the pat on the back. Our school Facebook looks like the dream, but deep down your staff is struggling mentally and physically. Just like Mr. Jensen, I have staff and students that have reached out to me, and I share the things that they say, and I get ridiculed for doing so. These staff members of Papillion need your help. Do you think they're going to have a staff member to come forward and tell you how they're feeling without being belittled or fired? Especially after the last meeting, when I had shared of our school numbers and a mom concerned for her child's homework, I get laughed at and mocked by Mr. Bailey and Sue-Ann Witt. Do you really think your teachers are going to feel comfortable coming to you, the board, and the administrators when they see a tax-paying citizen get belittled on YouTube? Why? That is the question. I have reached out to some staff looking for them to express their concerns. Many have taken more sick days, they've said, and have wanted to put in their resignations. Because of behaviors and the response to it, the accountability of our school leaders, they are burnt out. They don't get heard from the administration. Pay is awful, $46,000 for having a master's plus, when they have to supply items for their own students out of their own checks. And the workload is way too much. This isn't a Grand Island concern or Papillion, it's nationwide. Many more schools are coming to light, like I'm sure you've seen on the news this past week with the teacher walkouts. We need to restore the hope in the teachers and the staff, give them back their love of teaching and the smile like they had when they walked through the doors on their first days. They are so burnt out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up this evening for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, Mr. Michael Kuchenmeister. Welcome.
Hey, Michael Kuchenmeister, 10231 Cimarron Woods Drive. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, but I don't think that should ever end. It's kind of funny hearing her talk about some of these issues that I would agree with. I mean, it's obvious what's happening. We're losing staff, but I just really wanted to come here tonight to just thank our teachers and our staff so much. You've been put through so much over these last couple of years, a lot of it outside of all kinds of people's control. A lot of people did their best. You're underpaid, you're overworked. And then you're caught in the middle of some kind of nonsense culture war all of a sudden. That's politically motivated, and that doesn't really help much. So it might not seem like you're receiving a lot of public support, but I promise you, you do. Most people do support you. Most people do trust you in what you're doing, that you know what you're doing. So I wanted to thank our teachers. I wanted to thank our curriculum teams, especially our special ed curriculum teams, for putting together programs that draw so many families specifically for that to our district. So I consider that a huge success, and you probably don't hear it enough, but thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Moving on to item C under Section 2 Communications, our superintendent's report. Dr. Rickley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lotus, members of the board. Again, for the people in attendance this evening, thank you for being here, as well as those that are watching online. Wanted to highlight some of the senior send-offs and celebrations that we had last week. we had a number of board members that took personal time off from their job, from their busy daily life to attend a number of events. We had Zoo Academy, 2 graduations. We had Health Systems Academy, 2 graduations. We had Young Adult Transition Program graduation, Project Search graduation, 2 honors nights, 1 for each of the 2 high schools, and multiple other events that I'm just leaving off. But it's typically one of the most busy weeks of the year, but it's also one of the most rewarding. I think Dr. Tafoya once used the phrase, school board members aren't paid in monetary ways, but this is the payoff for our board when they get to see families and kids and moving across the stage and moving on to that next chapter of their life. That's why we're in this business. So congratulations to our seniors, and thanks to our staff and families that made all of this possible. Commencement yesterday. Again, we had all 4 of our board members that were physically able to be there. It was an incredible event. Baxter Arena really does put on a class venue for us. We had 467 Monarchs walk across the stage. We had 508 Titans walk across the stage, including my daughter. It was a rather emotional moment for me to see my oldest walk across the stage, and it was just a really, really neat afternoon. And again, special thanks to our moms that were in attendance for taking time away from a special day to celebrate the achievements of your seniors. Last day of school is fast approaching. Even though our seniors are done, we still have about 2.5 weeks for the rest of our students. So May 25th, I'm sure that's highlighted on all of your calendars. And also wanted to wish good luck to all of our candidates. Just as a reminder to our community, we've got a primary election tomorrow. We've got a number of state elected offices that we'll be choosing to move on to the general. And we have 9 candidates moving on to that will be whittled down to 6 for the general election in November, and just wanted to take a minute to wish best of luck to all 9 of the candidates. Before I turn it back to you, Mr. Lotus, just wanted to end on a bit of a somber note. We did lose 2 members of our family over the last several weeks. We lost a 10th grade student at Papillion La Vista High School, lost an 8th grader at Liberty Middle School. Just ask that the board and the community keep those families in your thoughts and prayers. And with that, I'd conclude my superintendent comments.
Thank you, Dr. Rickley. Moving on to item D under Section 2 Communications. I'll open it up for board comments this evening.
Well, I'll start it off. Just echoing the wonderful events that come at the end of the year and how exciting it is to be able to go to those that you can't get to every one of them when you work full-time, but got to several. And for me, it's always a real highlight to see all the students involved in the Health Academy and the Zoo Academy, that just their excitement and getting to talk to them and really understand what that has meant to them. Whether they're going on another year or they're seniors and they're done. And I think we've often talked about this, but one of the things about all of our academies is that not only does it help a student decide that this is for them or something along this pathway is for them, but it also helps them decide this is not for me. But it gave them that opportunity while they were in school, and now they know they can find another direction they want to go. So that is equally as important. But everything was great. The graduations were wonderful. We were fortunate. It wasn't a rainy day, so you didn't have to worry about running in and out in the rain. Just a great time all the way around. I did have a liaison luncheon at Carriage Hill. Dr. Rickley and Kathy Annette and I attended, and I never take notes because I'm so busy listening and engaging with the staff, but a couple things that were real highlights, and I think we've seen this across most of our liaison luncheons, but a lot of discussion around paras and the para situation and what can we do differently maybe to help the district in filling those positions. So we'll be looking at that in future discussions. Lots of conversation about mental health for our students in particular, but for our staff as well. And a lot of praise for a lot of the programs we have in place, the things we're doing within the community, that we're working with the community for that. So a lot of discussion around that. And some discussion around classroom size. When we're talking about that, they were talking more about student population. And one of the things we discussed at length was classroom size isn't just a number. It's about how big is that classroom? How many desks fit comfortably in that classroom? What is the makeup of that particular classroom, that grade level, that class. How many special needs students do we have versus how many we may not have in a classroom? So all of those things come into place. We had a lot of really good discussion about that. There were a lot of other things we touched on, growth in the district and other things, but it was a great opportunity. Lots of teachers through, so got to hear from a lot of teachers. I don't know if I missed anything, but those were the key points that I think we talked about. So that's all I have to share.
Okay. I did many of the things you did too, so I ditto everything you said. I did go to the Patriot Liaison lunch. Dr. Tafoya couldn't make it, so I went in his stead. And you're right, we talk about the same things, but one of the things that struck me was the comments about social emotional learning and SEL, as it's called, and the teachers said it's all about building relationships and the impact that it has had on their student body and their staff and the positivity that it brings to the building. They just love it. It's nice to see that the efforts are having a positive effect on our schools. The academy recognitions, I was able to attend the Education Academy here at Central Office, and one of the things that I think is great is that all of the members who graduate, and I can't remember the total number, but they're offered opportunity to come back and work for the district when they're finished with their higher education. Honors Night, I was able to go to both the Monarchs and Titans, and the gym was filled with proud family members and parents and friends of everyone who was there. I think the total amount evenly split between the two schools was about $36 million, and I think the number keeps going up as those awards are continued to be displayed. What's nice about it is you see a picture of the student and then you see what their plans are for their future, and they're just amazing things that these kids are planning to do with their lives. And I was unfortunately out of town and unable to attend graduation, so I'd like to extend my congratulations to all of the graduates, their families, and for their achievements. And students, you're ready for the next step in your life. And best wishes as you move on to that next chapter. Thank you.
Yeah, very talkative group this evening. I won't repeat, obviously, everything that's been said with all the other activities, other than the fact that graduation was just amazing yesterday. It's always fantastic to see the students fill in and see a sea of maroon, a sea of Monarchs, and a sea of Titans fill that arena. It was nice again, obviously, this year to have unlimited support from parents and grandparents and other relatives and friends and family. So that was just it's a privilege to be able to sit and sitting in this seat to officially, welcome them as graduates and then now alumni of this great district. So pretty amazing. But one thing I wanted to do is thank both Mr. Kleina and Mr. Spilker and their administrative teams and support and our maintenance staff and everybody that, as well as the folks from Baxter Arena with audio and visual and everything, the amount of work, obviously, that it takes to get, 985 students and 6,000 supporters in and out and have those ceremonies run as well as they do. It's just fantastic, and we know it's a lot of additional effort, but we know they do it with great pride because it is the culmination of a lot of years of hard work. So, again, to the administrative teams of both Papillion-La Vista South and Papillion-La Vista, a huge thank you on behalf of the board for everything to make yesterday such a success. And then lastly, obviously, graduation is one achievement, but there are lots of achievements that are happening every day. Academically as well as athletically. So spring sports were a huge success. We've still got district track coming up. We've got Papillion-La Vista South boys qualified for state, and they play tomorrow evening at 7:30 down at Morrison Stadium at Creighton University. Golf is spacing when that district kicks off, but
Districts have happened.
they're still coming up. So lots of activities still to go. And so, again, big thank you out to all of our staff, all of our folks that volunteer additional time, or not volunteer, but take on additional roles as coaches or assistant coaches or trainers to take care of our student athletes, as well as continue the remaining academic success that is left for the remainder of our students for the remainder of the year. So,
I just wanted to add one thing. It was very heartwarming to see how many of our students from both high schools have chosen to join one or the other of our military services. I appreciated that was acknowledged not only by the person announcing the names, but by the audience, who made sure that those students understood how much that meant to them as well. So we had quite a number of them, and we had a wide range of services this time. I think we had most services touch, including Air National Guard and some others. So just wanted to make note of that. That was really special, I thought.
The only branch that I don't recall hearing was Coast Guard, and then we're sending a couple of students to Air Force Academy, Colorado Springs. I don't know that we sent anybody to West Point or Annapolis Naval Academy, but at least 2 to Air Force Academy. So incredibly proud of our men and women that'll be wearing our nation's uniform.
any other board comments for this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item E under Section 2 Communications, our committee reports. Building, Grounds, and Finance.
We did meet, and the items we discussed are going to be on the agenda later on this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Tafoya. Human Resources and Student Services.
We met this evening. We will have items on future agenda.
And Curriculum and Americanism.
We have not met, but we do have a meeting scheduled coming up.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. All right, that concludes Section 2 Communications. Moving on to Section 3 Action Items. Item A, action by consent.
I'll move to approve the actions by consent.
I have a motion by Ms. Witt and a second by Ms. Fisher. Roll call, please.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Dr. Koya?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, our board meeting minutes of April 25th, 2022.
I'll make the motion to approve the board meeting minutes of April 25th, 2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by Dr. Tafoya. Roll call, please.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Dr. Koya?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to item C under Section 3 Action Items, the Emergency Vehicle Access Easement at Papillion La Vista South High School. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Lotus. Good evening, Board of Education. And we finally got this back on the agenda here. We've been waiting until we had the land purchase for the new elementary school contract kind of written up to include that grading as a reciprocal asset for the district. But I wanted to point out a few more things associated with that emergency vehicle access. The design will be approved by the district prior to any work. And I'll bring that over to the Buildings and Grounds and Finance Committee, committee before we do any work up there, that they're okay with it. We do want to make sure that Mr. Spilker and his team is involved in that design as well to make sure they're comfortable with it. We want to make sure that everybody understands that we will not lose access to Walnut Trails up there. Actually, we want to make it better as part of this. So that's all on the table as well as what we discussed in the previous meeting on this issue. And I will take any questions if you have any.
When do you think they would get working on it?
I know there was a discussion at one time, and this is all, when you're working with developers, timing is everything for them. And I know at one time they wanted to try to do that this summer. In late June, we discussed would be a good time frame to do that. But I'll report back and find out when they want to try to do it now, because we can't go into fall. So they're going to either have to do it during that time frame or wait until we're done with the fall sports.
Any other board comments, questions regarding the easement at Papillion La Vista South? All right, seeing none and no, what?
Oh, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, sorry. And seeing no public comment on this item.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Education of Papillion La Vista Community Schools should and does hereby authorize and approve the emergency vehicle access easement by and between Sanitary and Improvement District number 368 of Sarpy County, Nebraska, and the Papillion La Vista Community Schools for an easement that the Papillion La Vista South High School property, such easement in the form on file with official school district records and as presented at this meeting, or with such changes as are deemed necessary and in the best interest of the school district and approved by the board president or superintendent of schools or designee of either.
I have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by Ms. Fisher. A roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you all. Moving on to our final item D, under section 3 action items, the 36th Street land sale. Mr. Richards.
Yes, thank you again. This 36th Street property, we did show a map on that at the last meeting we discussed, and we had an appraisal done. We got the appraisal back last week, and the buyers agreed to that price of $35,000 for that piece of land. It's just over an acre in an area that's not really usable for us, as we discussed earlier. I anticipate we'll be able to close on that property by the end of June, pending approval tonight. Money from this transaction would be put in a special building fund per state law. I would happy to answer any questions for you at this time. I did want to update you on 36th Street. It's delayed, as you might notice, and I know it was originally supposed to be done here March of 2022, and it looks like it's going to be done next spring now. That first phase, and then they'll begin that second phase from Blind to Platteview Road in spring of 24.
Is there the sale of this land, though, is not going to cause any issues with the current road that we're using until they get the new road in?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, the city has some pieces of that property as
Yeah.
well that they're buying at the same time as they're trying to purchase ours.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? Seeing none, seeing no public comment in regards to this particular item on the agenda, I'll move for a roll call, please. Oh, sorry, jeez.
I'll make the motion to approve the purchase agreement with Redwood LLC as presented and designate the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services the authority to sign, execute, and deliver such agreement and any documents or agreements called for in such agreement for and pay any additional fees associated with this transaction on behalf of PLCS.
Second. Give it to Brett.
Go ahead.
I have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by a tie between Dr. Tafoya and Ms. Whip, but it goes to Dr. Tafoya. Sorry, Ms. Whip. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 All right, that concludes Section 3 action items. Moving on to Section 4 discussion and information items for this evening. Item A is our legislative update with Catalyst Public Affairs. It's not his first time doing it, so he beat me to it. Welcome, Mr. Gay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you handed those out. I got more. No, I've got one. I just made sure I wasn't sure we gave you those late. We put Kathy under the gun, got her these late. Apologize for that. Anyway, Tim Gay with Catalyst Public Affairs, kind of solo tonight. I got a call this morning, and Caitlin had a fever with her daughter, so she couldn't make it tonight. But we're about a month out of the legislative session. I know a couple of weeks ago we kind of moved around and got off the agenda, but we have an overview here for you here. I'm going to go through most of it. And then you could read some of those others, but then we'll get into it. But anyway, the session was taken up by, as I always say, the big funnel of all these bills come down, good or bad. The good thing, I think, was a lot of bills didn't get heard because of this ARPA funding. So there's a lot of arguments on how to spend $1.4 billion of money just handed to you. So that was interesting. And then also we had an excess amount of money, about $1.5 billion of excess tax revenues that they're trying to do tax cuts with and all that. So that really dominated a lot of the legislative session and all the different hearings and things like that. And then it was a short legislative session as well. So 60 days, it seems like a long time when it's stretched out. But at the end of the day, it went pretty fast. Part of the reason it went fast and things didn't get done were there were so many filibusters going on. With cloture, you need to get to 33 votes, and you can go for 8 hours. I assume they're going to look into this rule at some point, but it just slows things down that people can be obstructionist, and that's a good thing at sometimes, but it's a real bad thing at points too. So anyway, that kind of slowed things down very much. In our handout, we have these broken down by curriculum and some of those things. And as you can see, some of the things that we had brought up, if you remember last time, there were some privacy issues on how you could look at, what schools were providing on their internet, what could be looked at, what couldn't, how could you block things. And that was more so like pornography or different things like that people could take a look at it and say, hey, shut this off, shut that off. You probably already do that anyway, but this would have put it in state statute. There's a lot of pushback from that, from the ACLU and others on privacy issues, and also from the providers of internet service providers who are like, how are we going to be held accountable? So anyway, they had a big argument on that, got to the floor, ran out of time in this session. Senator Rita Sanders had a bill. That one was basically how parents could access learning materials and those things. She ended up not getting that bill passed. She had other priorities, so she did not prioritize that. That was part of the issue too. If you didn't prioritize your bill, it's hard to pass anything that's not prioritized. So that didn't go anywhere. Senator Day had a bill that did pass on the Holocaust, how to teach it. I don't know if you guys, did we check it? We checked in with you on that, right? You already did it. So we did some check-ins. You're already doing a lot of these things, but that did pass. Senator McKinney's bill, I know Mr. Richards and I talked extensively on this bill. It's a lot of computer IT training for kids that it's not very well defined how you're going to do this and what you're going to do, but you have to do it. It kind of conflicts with what you're already doing in other programs, it sounded like. So we were getting information out. It did pass, and as you can see, we put down Papillion La Vista. All our senators did end up voting for that. So we had several good conversations, I thought. Brett came down, talked to a lot of the senators, explained our situation. That's fine. So they had full knowledge going into voting on all these bills. So anyway, the big ones here that we pay close attention to is school finance bills. Senator Breezy had a bill. It was a lid bill. It was really the bill from last year that was reintroduced this year. It was his priority. It didn't pass. It got filibustered. So I don't know what he got. I forget what he ended up getting, but like 27 votes. So he wasn't even close to getting that passed. But it would have put a lid in there. It did have a kind of an out for bonds, which was good, but it still did not pass. Senator Linehan, every year she puts in a bill. Actually, this year she had 2 times to do this. This is for opportunity scholarships to kids around tax credits you put in, and you get a tax credit. The child can go to different schools. That bill will be back again for the next 2 years for sure, probably every year until something happens on it. That's just one of those bills. There's arguments on people love it or they hate it. But anyway, it got filibustered and it failed. So they couldn't get enough votes. That got 30 votes, I think. So it's getting closer every year to passing at some point. I mean, we talk every year about it, but pay attention to how that bill works because, will it will it be a good bill for Papillion versus, other parts with high poverty areas? I don't know. So that'll continue to be looked at going forward. Senator Walz's Bill 890 was a massive tax bill as far as moving school funding around. So when you hear, that was introduced actually by Senator Walz and Senator Lindstrom, who's running for governor right now. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. If he wins, that could be back very strongly because he's still pushing that. Is what it does, instead of the property tax credit getting all that money, it would come directly to the schools and they would lower the property tax credit. There would be some kind of lid on there, but that wasn't very well defined. And I think that was the Achilles heel of this whole thing. It's like, here, we're going to give you all this money to more fully fund schools from, so you could lower your property tax lid. So it had some reductions in there, but it didn't have lids like, well, okay, we trust you, but we don't. So we're not going to give you the money. So I think that was the main argument I had heard, but we'll see what happens. That's one I think will be back. We'll see who the chairman, Senator Walz is the chairman of the Education Committee. I don't know if she will be again next year, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Then just school administration bills. Those are ones what I would suggest that I'm not going to get into all of those, but there's like multiple bills got mashed together. The committee bills got mashed in together, so there's like 4 bills in each one of these. I would suggest at some point in June or whenever school's done, you guys will all come down, me, Melissa, Caitlin, and sit with you, and let's go through those things, because I think the devil's in the details on those. There's some really good things on that one on LB 1218 as far as, I think, Dr. Sells, I know you followed this, that money that you can pay to teachers to help pay off loans and some of those things. So that's going to be something to look into. It sounds good, but how do you execute it and get the money and awareness and all these different things? So that will be one of those things where we probably want to look into it. We can write up a paper much more than this little report tonight and kind of let you know what's going on there. So, and then the other one was a behavioral health bill. 2 of them got, and that was also Senator Day's bill, got in there. Senator Moorfield then added another one. You got to go, and each school provide a behavioral health person that they can go talk to. That's your designated behavioral health designee in that school. So it's, again, it's an unfunded mandate, but you don't have to get a person. It can be several different people, like a school nurse or something like that. I think you kind of do something like that anyway. Maybe you don't, but hey, that's the one we should, Dr. Rickley, talk to you about. So several interim resolutions. I'm not going to go through all those. The big things that we're looking forward to is a lot of these legislative seats are up for re-election. A lot are term limited. There's 12 term limited senators. Several of those were chairman of major committees, being the Appropriations Committee, not revenue, but 4 or 5 of those were committee chairs, retirement, and committee chairs like that, banking and insurance, and a lot of just experience, for better or worse, but they're gone. So those are open seats. We had 3 other seats that could be vacated. One of the speaker is running for the Attorney General, and he has a good chance of winning that. Senator Flood is running for Congress against another state senator, Senator Patty Pansy Brooks, and if he wins, he will have to be replaced out of Norfolk. And then Senator Paul's passed away just 2 weeks ago, I think it was. So in his area, there has to be an election. It's just the way it worked. He died like a month earlier, where the governor can't appoint that. So the governor gets to appoint to fill out the balance of this term, and but they do have to have an election. You got to go get 2,000 signatures, it sounds like, and then you get on the ballot. So there could be 5 or 6 people running in the general election there. Senator Pauls was a school administrator, a principal for a long time, very well educated on schools, and so we'll miss him as far as education bills go, and a lot of other things. So new governor, whoever that will be, I'm not going to get into the politics of all this stuff, but they all have different views on education and how they want to fund it, property taxes, things like that. So we'll know a lot more tomorrow, and then Senator Blood will be the Democratic nominee. And then, I'm sure they'll have big discussions on education at some point. So we'll follow those. And then, like I say, continue to meet with our existing senators. And down here, we only have one open seat. Sarah Holdcroft, I know Dr. Rickley has met with him, and probably many of you have met with him. And he has an opponent, Rick Holdcroft. Angie Lawrenson's running against him, so we'll see what happens. But all our other senators are not. Oh, Senator Arch is up for election as well. But I'm going to get myself in trouble talking about this politics. But either way, we got to continue to keep educating them. I think we hit a nice point where we were getting a lot of calls. What's this mean, this bill, on this or that? So that was good. That's what we want, is that they come and ask us questions and what do you think? And Rhett's been good. Dr. Rickley is always good to come down. I know Dr. Settles and Shereen, they've all been good, and their staff to get answers to us quickly when we say, hey, how does this work at Papillion, La Vista? So long session next year. They're going to rewrite the whole school funding bills, have to be rebudgeted, how this ARPA stuff and the tax cuts work out. It'll be interesting to see. They gave a lot of tax cuts going forward, which, again, there's a lot of money to give tax cuts, but the conversation was, how's that go long term? Is it sustainable with the economy? But that's probably every year. Who knows? Every biennium. So, but with that, that's our report, and we will get with you on probably June on that touch base. So, any questions or?
I do have one. 11, 12. Did you say that was unfunded?
No. Well, when I say unfunded, it doesn't add a lot. I think 12. That's the one. 852 is the one I meant. 1218. Sorry, is that the one you're looking at? 1218. There's
11,
several
12,
bills.
that's McKinney's educational bill.
Yeah. You got to provide it.
Providing that.
Yeah, there was way worse. Let's put it that way. You got to provide all those: the computer training, the Holocaust, the behavioral health. So all four of those bills require new things that the district has to do going forward. How you do it, with your existing staff or whatever, I don't know. And that's where I'd like to sit down and say how exactly, but how exactly that's going to work, who knows? They just go and pass these bills as we've talked about, and you try to get in there. The problem with this one was, and I'm a little bit, Caitlin, watch this, there's 5 bills going on at once, so what was I covering that one, or Caitlin, or whatever? But that's why it's best to sit down and put all of us. It was like, hey, what'd you hear on that? What'd you hear on this? But there wasn't any huge, massive ones. Brett, I don't know, did you see anything that really stuck out in your mind that would, which ones are going to be costly?
Well,
Computer.
the 1112 bill, is probably going to end up costing the district some money because of the fact that we got to put all those kids through that computer course, whatever that ends up being defined as. There is some talk about trying to clean up that bill a little bit at the start of the next session to be more clear on what schools need to do. Because right now it says computer science, and then they come back and say it's got to be a technology class. Well, okay, define what that may be. And so we're looking for a little bit more clarification. I know what they're asking for in the graduation credit is actually we already teach in the junior high, so it doesn't get a credit. So it's just we need a little bit more clarity there, and I know the Nebraska Department of Education is going to try to help with that.
Most of the bills that they come up with that affect us, we already are teaching it. I don't know one of them that they have not passed that we have already had included in our curriculum at one point or another.
The argument, also Dr. Tafoya, on that we brought an argument, but this is reality. How do you go hire the people that have that training to teach those classes again and again and again? And you're a big district. How are the small districts going to do this? I have no idea. So, but it sounds really good. I mean, you want to do this kind of training. You have to do it, and I think most people are doing it. But now you have to do this, And that was our issue, but it was just like I don't know, kind of like a bulldozer coming down the road. It's like, you better get out of the way, or you're going to get run over. And it just seemed like it's such a good idea, let's do this, that people didn't want to hear the argument of, yeah, but how are we going to, look, can we walk you through the details? There wasn't much time. They just wanted to pass their bill, and we'll get the details worked out, because what they do, they'll just send it to the Department of Education, and they will, like Beth says, here's what you need to do, but they'll try working with you on it. But, and it could be cleaned up. The problem with that, though, you clean it up with 15 to 18, 20 new senators. So that's the hard part. Now you got to go clean it up, and with 20 new people who don't know what just happened last year. So that could be a challenge. But
Is there anything we could be doing up until the next session on any of the ones that maybe were close this last time, or the ones we think are going to get another chance in the next session instead of waiting until the next session starts because it just gets too busy?
Oh, yeah. And that's, thanks for that question, because, so what really happens is all these bills are dead now. So there's a 2-year biennium session. So they're all dead now. They'll have to all be rewritten and reintroduced. When I say they're coming back, they'll be coming back. The concept of the bill, and that's what we're going to do all summer and fall. That's why we want to meet in the summer. It's just better to do that. We need to, COVID, it's been a little tough for us to do this, but we meet up and say, how could that be better? And then when we say, could we improve these things on these bills coming back, that's when we go and talk to your senators. And it's not just the Papillion or the Sarpy County senators, okay? Because there's only, Senator Day is on the Education Committee, which is good, and she's been really good to talk to. Senator Sanders is on there. She's been really good to talk to. For all I know, she may run for chairman of the committee, because I don't know. But anyway, so we will talk to them for sure. But a lot of others you just don't know. So we're trying. It's a tough one, because you don't know who's going to be on those committees either. They don't have to stay on the committee. But anyway, all those are going on still all year. We just don't come in and tell you all that stuff, but that's what goes on. So that's why I talk about too the tax credit bill for schools. That bill keeps coming back, and you might want to be paying attention to that, how that works, and write it up that it works well.
I would say
concepts are
that
good,
interim
reality.
study too on school finance, we'll try to be heavily involved in that, making sure they have the accurate information as they go through their process on that interim study.
Yeah.
One of the other things, Marcus, we continue to stay active in GNSA, Greater Nebraska Schools Association, which focuses mainly on budgetary issues, but sometimes other issues come up, and they take positions on that. So Mr. Richards and I have been very active in that group. And the one thing that Tim and his team have been really aggressive about is setting up those meetings during the off season with state senators and even our federal delegation. We had a visit with Congressman Bacon not more than 2 weeks ago, and visited with staff at Monarch and Titan, and we talked about some education issues that were important to him. So that's one area I think Tim has really brought a lot of value to our legislative efforts.
Yeah, thank you. And just another thing too, it's like part of that, the GNSA and School Board Association, that's all well and good. They can talk to whoever they want, but sometimes it's just best you got a different relationship when it's your senator. They want to hear, how does it affect my school district, and that's kind of where we fit in. Instead of you being there constantly, we're there. And then also we have very key relationships with some of the chairmen of the committee that maybe they don't, because we get to talk to the senators so much. So, to tell why we do this, that's what we do. That's a benefit to you that you probably couldn't just do through your association. The associations are good to have, but they're not the end-all be-all when it comes to actually educating senators. So don't tell your associations that, but that probably, and that goes for all of them, whether it's county officials or cities or whatever, because it's hard to speak for everybody. They want to hear how does it affect my district with my grandson or granddaughter or whatever in that district, or kids. So anyway.
I just want to thank Tim and Brett and everyone else who's been involved with the lobbying effort. It really is a team effort. Tim has been our registered lobbyist for a number of years. He does outstanding work in the area of government relations. Brett has been an extremely strong addition to the team. I think we all know how strong Mr. Lewis was in this area before Brett, and Brett has picked up the baton and run with it. So thank you, Tim, for everything you do to represent us, and same for you, Brett. We're lucky to have you.
Well, appreciate the opportunity, and also Kathy, is we pester her an awful lot for that. Sorry, but hey, we get it. But she's good, and everybody, and all of you, I appreciate it getting back quick, because it's like the agenda doesn't come out till 9 or 10 or late, and then next thing you got something on the agenda you weren't expecting, and you have to get an answer quick. But we appreciate that. I know you guys get calls all the time, so thank you again.
Thank you. All right, that concludes item A under section 4, discussion and information items. Moving on to item B is the land purchase for a new elementary school. Mr. Richards.
Okay. We do have some funds earmarked from the 2018 bond to purchase land for future elementary school or schools. Mr. Lewis started those conversations with this particular developer back in the summer of 2020. And the Buildings, Grounds, and Finance Subcommittee was involved in some of those discussions even after I've taken over on this particular piece of land. And Mr. Lewis's foresight as well has been helpful here. It's compatible with that RSP enrollment study where growth will be occurring within the district. I think north of Highway 370 seems to be the area that's going to get hit the hardest, along with Ashbury Elementary School. So Prairie Queen and Ashbury Elementary School are the two. Ashbury still needs to fill up, so that doesn't look to be overfilled for at least 6 or 7 years worth of growth. And Prairie Queen's the one we're worried about the most, according to the RSP study. And this fits in well with our timing of trying to get the school finished. It'll relieve pressure from that particular elementary right off the bat. The location of this particular property is 99th Street and Lincoln Road, so just east of Liberty Middle School. Here's the location map. If you look at that, you have on the north side there, Lincoln Road, on the top of the diagram. You can see a new road will be created off of 99th Street that will also have access to that site. So it's 12.127 acres approximately, which is a good site, good size for an elementary school. And any questions on that particular location while I have the map up? Okay. Architects have had a chance to review the site as well as Lamper and Earson, who's the engineers that usually works on particular sites. Grading, we did get included in the price to kind of reciprocate for the easement at Papillion La Vista South. Price of land is within the purchase agreement, and it's what the developer paid for it at this particular time. And that's usually the deal the developers give us is the price of the land tends to be what they pay for that as well. New building, we'd want this elementary school to be part of that next bond cycle whenever that is. And I would take any questions or comments at this particular time as we discuss this piece of property.
I'm sorry, can you help me just a little bit with the exact, you put the map up there, but I'm still a little bit confused on exactly which piece you're talking about.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Can you,
Let me come on
because
over.
it's not like highlighted or anything. I just want to be sure I'm looking at the right piece. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just want to make sure that.
So this is the top part of the map, Lincoln Road.
Yeah.
It's coming across here. This will be, you see it's kind of cut off here, but it's 99th Street that'll turn into G Street. So if you can get a kind of an idea, 99th Street will be
Yep.
the other crossway. And we'll have access from both Lincoln Road and G Street, similar to probably Prairie Queen, where we have access to Lincoln Road and the side road on the property. This outlet I is also part of the purchase.
Where is Liberty Middle School in relation to this?
Liberty Middle School will be on this side. Over here.
Thank you. And all of these squares immediately parcel and south of the parcel. Am I correct? Those are all residential lots, projected residential lots.
Yep, residential lots, I think they have planned right now, almost 200 lots within that particular development.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't have a question, more of just a comment. Having been involved since some of these discussions started, I was grateful that the developer and the district kind of recognized that the original plan was for it to be further west and almost adjacent to Liberty Middle. And I think just after some planning studies and things, Liberty already has some traffic issues at drop off and pick up. So I think that was a good discussion and recognition that let's see if we can find something that's better suited and so it moved further east, which I was very, very happy to see. Any other board comments, questions regarding the site?
I'm just following up a little bit on, so we did our short and long range planning meeting at our last board meeting, and I'm assuming this fits into that.
Yes.
So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, and I, again, Mr. Lewis deserves a lot of credit for that, keeping an eye on where things are going to grow. But the RSP study did confirm, we're going to need to relieve Prairie Queen first, and this is the area it's coming from.
Okay.
This area, and with the new almost 200 home development here, and then the developments that are north of there are feeding into Prairie Queen right now. So we're going to need to relieve that school, and this will do that for us.
As a follow-up to that, Ms. Fisher, if the board does authorize this purchase and if our community does support building our 17th elementary building here, that will require a boundary change. Something that none of us embrace doing, but I kind of wondered if that's where you were going. So, yeah, Prairie Queen will crest very soon, north of 600 students. It's already one of our top 2 largest buildings enrollment-wise, along with Bell. So if we're going to take pressure off that building, we will definitely have to do a boundary adjustment at some point, sooner rather than later.
So that leads me to the boundary thing, but when we look at a Prairie Queen, I'm just thinking in my head, we all know that neighborhoods grow and they ebb and flow and they age and they come back down again. That's just the nature of it, right? Because kids grow up and people don't necessarily move, and then eventually it kind of turns around again. If we build this school, and if we build at this location, and just because we buy the land doesn't mean we're going to do that.
Correct.
So that's an important statement to make. Right now, it looks like this is where we might want to put a school, but that could change. Land is sellable, so it's not a bad thing to have some land available to us because it's one of the hardest commodities to get when you really need it. But do we have in that, and I'm trying to think back to that, where we might anticipate that ebb and flow of Prairie Queen? It's still a fairly young neighborhood, but where we might see some of that changing.
I think we can continue to look at the yield rates and see if there's any patterns within that RSP enrollment study on what Prairie Queen is producing. And I think it'll be important for us as we work through a boundary change in the future with elementary schools to continue to update our enrollment study, at least biannually, every 2 years, to make sure that we're on top of those things, whether that be with RSP or a different company that we want to use. I think that's important to keep that front and center, especially with all the changing conditions that he mentioned when he was here, with COVID and all the things that affected with our enrollment here in the district. Mortgage rates are up now. Is that going to slow things down from where they have projected? So I think it'll be real important for us to keep that updated.
One of the other factors, Ms. Fisher, is you are absolutely correct. We know that neighborhoods have a way of turning over, and that does have a direct impact on the number of enrolled students. One of the things we have found, though, is that when a building crests, when it reaches its maximum point, even though the normal cycle is for it to drop and then start to rise again as the neighborhoods turn over, that building almost never reaches its high water mark. I would use 3 of our buildings as examples of that. Portal Elementary crested at north of 600 It's just about 400 and has been for a number of years. Patriot being another good example, crested at almost 600 students. It's about 410 students right now. Probably the best example is Walnut Creek. I believe it crested at almost 700 students at one point. Right now it's sitting at about 410, 420. So we do need to be very mindful of how that turning over of neighborhoods does impact our enrollment. But once it hits its high water mark, it almost never gets all the way back up there. But that's certainly something we'll continue to monitor.
I agree with you. I need to see a picture. So like if I had a map of that area and here are all the schools and we're saying their current enrollment, projected enrollment that the study provided, we'll be able to see why we need the school here and specifically how we expect the communities to grow. Then we'll know for sure this school, we see it's high, but we know it's going to go down, the rate is going to go over here. Then we'll be able to have that. It's hard to see from this that one place is the right place.
Okay.
Yeah, and in that RSP study, I mean, it does project, that, and it's not, next year, it's in that 5 to 7 year.
Right, and that's, I think if we can
window.
see the current enrollment, expected enrollment in, 3 years and 5 years. And I know the Buildings and Grounds Committee has seen this already. It's those of us who are not on that committee.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
think I'm scheduled to come into your committee next week, so I'll bring
Okay,
that.
that's great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Any other board comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, we do have a public comment for this agenda item. Again, public comment for items on the agenda is limited to 30 minutes. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes. When I call you up, please state your name and address for the record. For public comment in regards to the potential land purchase for a new elementary school, I'll call up Ms. Lorene Renante.
All right, Lorene Renante, 1108 Park Drive, Papillion. So tonight's the first time that the public's hearing about this potential purchase and land for a new elementary school in the Granite Creek subdivision. And we actually didn't get to hear any details until Mr. Richards just now talked to us about it. So all of the paperwork is attached to the agenda, and it really seems as though tonight's meeting and the next board meeting on May 23rd will be just a formality. I'm guessing you're all going to vote for this, and it will pass with 6 yeses and 0 noes. And so there rarely is a vote where there is any dissent here. So it's so easy to spend other people's money. I do understand that we as a community need to talk about the need for new schools, but there's no other discussion from the community to be involved until this agenda is actually posted. I know the next thing you're going to ask this community for is another bond, and that was in that little presentation, to either upgrade existing schools again and or to build other schools. This community needs more notice and needs to be involved sooner. Our property taxes are out of sight. They just keep going up and up. We are headed for a recession of some sort very soon as the Fed continues to print money and our legislatures keep spending our money. And you are some of those legislatures. I get that there needs to be some planning and forecasting, but the community really needs to have a say. Why not have some town halls, allow for some questions? It was very clear from the last meeting with the report from RSP Associates that something was going to happen. You all approved the taxpayers' money to spend $19,500 on that report. That is a lot of money. We also need to see why there are so many resignations of teachers and to look at the decline in student enrollment before a new piece of land is purchased and just dropped on the taxpayer with all of the additional maintenance and costs. Clearly, that's what that PowerPoint presentation was supposed to say last meeting. Instead, you allowed RSP to make that presentation. The board members here are not hearing us, the public. We don't like the way it is business as usual. We are telling you we want things to change, and there is no reason why it cannot change. Start by being engaged with your community and asking for some input other than comments at these board meetings. There is more to the community than just students and teachers. Many of us do not have school-age children any longer. You would have a community that would trust and respect you, and right now there isn't much of that going on. You were elected to make sound decisions and be the firewall between the public and the administration. No one asks questions to any of us that speak here. Why? It's not against the law or policy. Engage with us, learn from us, educate us. Don't just hide behind your computers and emails. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question to Mr. Richards?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, to Mr. Richards. So the elementary land purchase, it was part of the bond for the last go-around that was discussed and
Yes.
voted on purchase of land for an elementary school, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so all that money was already in the budget for it. Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Well, and as a follow-up, that's a really important point. We generally don't respond to the audience after they've provided public comment, but it's important to note that we started talking about purchase of a future elementary land parcel as far back as 2017. We did host town hall meetings. We did do community engagements. We send out multiple mailers detailing additions to Monarch, additions to Titan, new land purchases. So to characterize this as a new conversation simply isn't accurate.
Appreciate it.
All right, that concludes item B under section 4, discussion and information items. Moving on to our final item C, the review of the policy 5000 students. Dr. Settles.
Thank you. Yes, in the month of May, it is up for annual review of our student board policy 5000. We will certainly like to hear from each of you if you have any recommended revisions, and we will bring recommended revisions to you at the next meeting for discussion. And then if there are any changes recommended, that would be acted upon at the June 13th meeting. So I'll watch for your input if there was anything in particular you wanted to have us take a look at, but our team will be looking at that as well.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Settles. All right, that concludes section 4, discussion and information items. Moving on to section 5, our future board calendar. May 11th, 2022, the district's years of service and retirement reception at 3:45. There was a time change after the agenda was posted late last week. That ceremony is here at the central office. On May 12th, 2022, the ideal graduation at 6 p.m. at Papillion La Vista South High School. And then May 23rd, 2022, the next Board of Education meeting at 6 p.m. here at the central office. Seeing no further business before this board, I will adjourn the Papillion La Vista Community Schools Board of Education meeting for May 9th, 2022 at 7:17 p.m. Thank you all.